The Skeleton and the Princess. A long time ago, there lived a very wealthy and affluent king in a faraway kingdom. He had a very beautiful daughter of a marriageable age and named Effiong. All the men in the country wanted to marry her, but she refused all offers of marriage. Most of the rich old men asked for her hand in marriage, but she called them old and ugly. Afyong was very proud and vain. In spite of the repeated entries from her parents, she refused to marry any man from her land. She vowed, I am going to marry a very rich prince from a faraway kingdom. A prince would be the best looking man in the entire world. He will be strong and perfect in every way and capable of loving me properly. So Effiong the princess continued to disobey her parents, at which they were very, very grieved. One day, there was commotion within the village. What could be happening? The people inquired. Not long after, they got the news to the palace. A very fine man had been seen in the market who was better looking than any of the natives. Afyong rushed to the market at once, and directly she saw the most handsome man she had ever set her eyes on. She fell in love immediately and invited him to her house. The prince was delighted and went home with her. On his arrival, the handsome prince was introduced to Efyong to her parents. The prince immediately asked for their consent to marry their daughter. At first, they refused as they did not wish her to marry a stranger, but at last they agreed. He lived with Effiong for 2 days in her parents' house and then said he wished to take his wife back to his country, which was far off. To this, the princess readily agreed, as he was such a fine man, but her parents persuaded her not to go. However, being very headstrong, she made up her mind to go and they started off together. It was a very sad day for the king and the queen, but what did they do? After walking for several days, Afyong and her husband crossed the border between the spirit land and the human land, and immediately they set their foot in the spirit land. Strange things begin to happen. First of all, one man came to the prince and demanded his legs. Another came and demanded his head. Another came and demanded his body, and so on, until in a few minutes the prince was left with nothing but a skull. The princess became terrified. She could not understand what has happened to her handsome prince. She asked, what happened? The prince then laughed at the princess and confessed that the princess was now seeing him in his natural state. He had borrowed all his body parts from other spirits so he could look human when he went to ask for her hand in marriage. In fact, his entire body consisted of only a human skull. The princess wanted to return him, but the skull would not allow her and ordered her to go with him. When they arrived at the skull's house, they found his mother. She was a very old, quite incapable of doing any work. She could only creep about. Effiong tried her best to help her and cooked food for her, brought water and firewood for the old woman. The old woman was very grateful for these intentions and attentions and soon became quite fond of Effiong. One day, the old woman felt very sorry for Effiong and decided to help her. She promised to send her back to her country as soon as possible, provided she promised that in future she would obey her parents. This Effiong readily consented to do. Then the old woman sent for the spider, who was a very clever hairdresser, and made him dress Afyong's hair in the latest version. She also presented her with anklets and other things on account for her kindness. She then used her supernatural power to call the breeze to gently carry Afyong to her father's kingdom. Soon afterwards, the breeze deposited Afyong outside her home and left her there. When the king and the queen saw their daughter, they were glad as they had some months giving up on her as lost. There was feasting and dancing throughout the kingdom for 8 days and nights. Afterwards, the king passed a law that parents should never allow their daughters to marry strangers who came from far away country. Then the prince from the neighboring village came to ask for Efyong's hand, and she married him, and she willingly consented and lived with him for many years and had so many children. If you find this story interesting, please subscribe to our channel, please give our video a thumbs up, and please drop a comment on how you like us to get better. Thank you.